All right, man. I'm here with my man Keith Robertson Jr. It's episode 8 of the Molds That Make Fatherhood. Man, I've been watching Keith for a long time, man. We went to high school together. I've been seeing all the things he's doing with his kids. He's in the current situation where he's parallel parenting. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. And we're going to talk about how he's connecting with his kids during these times in this co-parenting and this parallel parenting. How you feeling today, brother?
Hey man, I'm good, man. Thank you for having me. I feel honored to be a guest, and just the fact that you reached out, man, means a lot. So I'm excited to be here and chat with you for a little bit.
Oh man, trust me, the pleasure's all mine, man. When anybody want to participate in this and share their story, man, I just love it, man. I love having anybody on that's willing to share their story and their knowledge and experience when it comes to parenting. And it's a very vulnerable place to be too, to have these type of conversations, man, to be,
Yeah,
talking about your personal life. It's
that's
real
true.
stuff, man.
That's true.
Because a lot of times we get into things where it's like we get into really intimate conversations and details, and it's like you got to be vulnerable,
Yep.
putting
Yep.
yourself on display for everybody to hear. And
And a lot of growth comes from vulnerability. You know what I'm saying? And that's an aspect that doesn't typically come natural to us. So
mhm.
learning that and being able to express it is something that benefits me as well as those that listen. So I'm always happy to do it.
Okay, absolutely, man. Thank you. So before we got on here, before we hit record, man, we was talking about your situation and like, you're divorced now, like,
Yep.
and you're in a parallel parenting situation. A lot of people don't really understand, or some people don't know what that means. Can you
Okay.
explain like what that means to
Yeah.
the audience?
So parallel parenting is basically where each parent does their own thing, right? There's not a lot of communication. There's not a lot of give and take to do, create a joint environment for the kids. It's, hey, it's my days, my rules. This is what I'm going to do on my time. And then same thing on her end. So there's not a lot of communication in a parallel situation,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
yeah. And what do you think? Like, are there any pros to that, or like, what's your viewpoint and your perspective on parallel parenting, in general?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm being honest, I hate it.
Yeah.
Like it's not my preference. It's unfortunately the situation that I was kind of thrown into. Um from a I'm always trying to find a positive out of every situation, right?
Yeah.
So from a positive standpoint, the only thing that it does is prevents, you know, unnecessary arguments or tension that the kids can pick up on.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, they pick up on the fact that, hey, you and mommy ain't communicating,
Right.
which isn't good either,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So if it's a situation where y'all can't get along and y'all can't keep that under wraps around the kids, then maybe that's the way to go, unfortunately.
Yeah. And I know you communicate pretty well with your kids. And have they expressed to you their feelings and thoughts about the parallel parenting situation to you?
Yeah, yeah. We talk about it more so with my son. He's older, he's 13. And he's expressed the desire or the hope that at some point, we'll come back together and kind of be on the same team. He's accepted the fact that we're not going to get back together,
Hmm.
but he's hopeful that what we're going through right now will pass and we'll be able to work together again. My daughter, she doesn't really get it.
Yeah.
She just understands that, hey, when I'm with daddy, I'm with daddy. When I'm with mommy, I'm with mommy. And what she do over there may not be the same as what he do over there.
Yeah. Are you as hopeful as your son is about that?
Man, I mean, like I said, I'm old. The door is always open because that creates a better environment for them.
Yeah.
And from my standpoint, it's always kids first, regardless of whatever we got going on or what's happening. If it's better for them, I could put all that to the side, but I can't do it alone. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
that's the that's the part. I'm doing this parallel thing alone because we aren't seeing eye to eye. Um, but that door is always open. And I would like us to get back to a situation where we couldn't work together because
Hmm.
ultimately that's going to create a better environment for the kids. And it's going to show them, it'll teach them conflict resolution as well, that just because you have an issue with somebody, just because things don't work out, doesn't mean that you can't keep moving forward in a positive manner.
Yeah, absolutely. And so when it comes to this situation, getting back to a place of, being cordial and possibly co-parenting, for you, like what you said, the door is always open. So what would you say is the first step would be for you to, if you were going to get to a place where things were really good?
Yeah. So, without going into major detail, a few months back, something happened between us, and it was something that impacted the children and their well-being, their mental health. And I expressed, listen, we need to have a discussion about this because it impacts them. And unfortunately, she didn't want to talk about it. And from my standpoint, this topic was so important that nothing else mattered, because it was a major issue that needed to be dealt with. And since we couldn't deal with that, now we don't deal with each other at all. And I still hold firm to the fact of, we need to talk about this thing that happened so that we can make sure that we move in a direction that's best for them before, because saying you're talking about basketball classes versus swim classes it don't matter when the stakes are so high. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So hopefully if she's ready to have that discussion so that we can make sure they're moving in the right direction, then the floodgates open up, and I've reached out, repeatedly to try and make that happen. And it's just, nope, nah, we don't need to talk about that, which in my mind we do.
So let me ask you this then. So is it possible, because right now you're not communicating at all, right? So do you think it's possible because you think that you obviously believe that this is a serious topic that needs to be discussed, right? But if you're not communicating at all, is it possible to say, hey, look, maybe we can table this discussion and let's communicate about other things that involve the kids, and maybe at some point we can get there, right? Do you feel like that would be worth it, or do you feel like this conversation has to happen before we move forward with further communication?
Yeah, so I feel like I'm working on that. You know what I'm saying? In regards to, I'm handling it delicately on my end, so that there's at least some form of communication about what happened and some level of understanding without getting into, the details with them. And I think once I get to a point where I feel that they're taken care of, then that I can take that pressure off of being so laser focused on how this impacts them to open the door to other things like that. And I think that, I mean, that's a great suggestion, because it takes the tension out of the room, so to speak, and maybe it softens things up.
So it's something that would you say is something you're willing to consider?
Oh yeah.
Sure.
And I think that, like I said, I'm getting there, but it's gonna take a lot of work, just because there's a lot of animosity built up. Even when we're in the same room, it's kind of like the mumble under your breath so the kids can't hear you type of thing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So yeah, it will take me kind of, I don't like saying being the bigger person, but putting everything to the side and extending that olive branch. And it's tough because I've done that repeatedly, time and time again. And where we from is like, hey, how many times I'm gonna give you my face to slap? You know what I mean? But again, like I said, it's the kids first. So if I gotta get slapped time and time again for their betterment, I'm with that.
Yeah. Or if you gotta get slapped, or if you gotta, you know what I'm saying, maybe put your desire to, or your need, or whatever you feel like the need is, to have that conversation. Maybe, like you said, because if you're not having it anyway, right? Like if and you say, all right, the kids are number one, and co-parenting is the best situation for our kids, and we could be communicating. Maybe it's in my best interest to put my stuff to the side and be like,
yeah,
all
yeah.
right, you know what? Let's not talk about it right now, but let's talk about other things that involve our kids. Right.
You're absolutely right, man.
And then, maybe we have it one day. Maybe, we get to a place where we can have it. Maybe we don't.
Right, right.
But, it's just tough when do you know anybody else in a situation like yours, like a parallel parenting situation?
Let me think. Not to the degree of mine, because we had 50-50 custody. So it's really, really, it's split right down the middle, and other fathers that I know that are in a parallel situation, they get, every other weekend and a week or two in the summer. And I mean, I could be wrong here, but I don't think that that's as impactful, because it's not, hey, I'm going back and forth, half the time here, half the time there.
Yeah.
So I don't know anybody that's in like this same situation that I'm in right now.
Yeah. Do you think the back and forth has a negative or impact on the kids, like, doing 50-50?
Nah, to me, I think it's actually a benefit, because they get to experience and spend time with both parents equally, which I think is extremely important.
Yeah.
And they're resilient, so they adapted to it real quick. Even my daughter, she was 6, 7 at the time, and it was like, oh, it's Monday, it's Tuesday, I'm at daddy's house. Hey, tomorrow's Wednesday. Oh, I go to mommy's. You know what I'm saying? So they got in line with the schedule. And I don't see an issue with them going back and forth. And they seem to enjoy it, because they're not away from one of us for too long at any given time.
And one of the things I noticed with my kids is I think there's certain things that they like about being at mommy's house, and there's certain things that they like about being at daddy's house. And it's like, and certain things they don't like, you know what I'm saying? So like, but they get kind of the best of both worlds. They get like two different atmospheres of things that they like and things that they don't like. And it's like, all right, I don't hate it at either place. I love certain things. Like, so I think, like you said, kids are resilient, and they got they got like two sets of friends that they play with over here and over there. But yeah. And so, one of the things, I talk to a lot of dads. I got my Facebook group for co-parenting fathers.
Okay.
And a lot of guys are worrying about like how they're making those connections with their kids when they only getting a certain amount of time with them. Right. Yep. They're only getting, some guys, a lot of guys don't even get 50-50.
I know.
Right.
I know.
So they getting I know guys getting every other weekend or things like that. And they're really worried about, they wonder how I'm going to connect with my kids in the little bit of time that I have them. And one of the things I admire about you is I see you on social media, man. I see the things that you're doing. You got the mic set up there. You got the podcast with your son. You always doing things with your kids, the Freestyle Friday, like little things like that, man, where you just trying to have a good time. Like, talk to me about that, man. Like, how did you start coming up with these ideas and developing these things, and how you was going to connect with your kids?
Yeah. And that time is so valuable and so important to me that, when we started going through the divorce process, I dug my heels in and said, listen, if we're not talking about 50-50, everything else don't matter. Like, that is the most important thing to me, because my children are everything. And I've always been there in a 50-50 capacity. So we're not going to change that now just because we're not together.
Right.
And then when we moved into that situation, I quickly realized, I was like, 50% is not a lot of time, is. So when I came to that realization, I made a strong decision to say, when they're here, my time is their time. You know what I'm saying? Because I go off and play Madden when they're not here. I have that flexibility now, because they're not here 50% of the time. Yeah. So how dare I pick up the sticks and go tell them to go do something else, right?
Yeah.
So in doing that, it was like, well, 50% is not a lot of time, but when you're trying to fill every second of it, it becomes a lot of time, and you got to get creative and, find opportunities and things that connect with them, so that
Yeah.
that time that you're spending doesn't become a chore, it doesn't become tedious, it becomes something that creates memories that are long lasting, that
Yeah.
one, you look forward to, and that they enjoy and get that real bonding time with you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. That's dope, man. Like something you said before, before we got on here and hit record, you were
Uh,
saying like there was a time where you didn't like, man, I didn't even really know my kids like that.
uh,
And do you like,
yeah,
because and it's something I want like co-parenting fathers to understand. Like I think sometimes, when you're in the same house and you marry, it can be you can get into a routine where you're going through the motions and then something happen like, oh, like a divorce. And you're like,
uh-huh,
man, now I really have to be intentional about how connecting with my kids. I only get them 50% of the time,
yeah,
So like, what was
yeah,
tell me about, walk me through that, like your thought
yeah.
process.
And that was probably the most difficult transition that I went through, right? Because like I said, before the divorce, I was a very active father. I was there, but my role was, hey, I come home from work and it's party time. Like daddy's here. Let's have fun. You know what I'm saying? Let's
Mm-hmm.
go throw the basket. Let's go throw the football, shoot some basketball. Let's play with these Barbies with my daughter.
Yeah.
And, but I never, I never really connected with them. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? Like I never sat down and like had deep conversations like, hey, tell me about your day. What happened today? What's going on with your friend group? That was always mommy's job. And so they
Yeah.
got it. You know what I'm saying? So I never felt like they were lacking in me not giving that to them. Um, but when I was on my own and it was like, hey, well, now you're here 50% of the time. I can't let you go though that 50% and not have that outlet. So
Mm-hmm.
I had to do a lot of work to understand, how do I connect with my children? How do I learn about them and have those conversations? And that was actually the catalyst for me starting my podcast,
Yeah.
because in talking to a lot of fathers, they didn't know how to do that. They didn't know how to connect because it wasn't modeled for them. They
Mm-hmm.
either A lot of us didn't have fathers there, or if we did, they were first time dads. So they didn't know what they was doing. You know what I'm saying? So we didn't
Mm-hmm.
have it modeled or shown to us to give us that skill set to then carry on to our children. So me and my son, we sit down every week and we have a real conversation and really talk about life and just share going on in his world and giving my insight and perspective. And as well, to a lesser degree, it's more, let's build this into our playtime. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. So you mentioned a podcast with your son called, Daddy's Fishbowl, right? Um,
Yeah, yeah.
how'd you come up with the name?
So a long time ago, probably 10 plus years ago, I had a blog by the same name. And the reason that it was Daddy's Fishbowl is because fish bowls are clear, they're transparent. You can see right through them. You can see the lives of the fish play out in front of you. And that's what I wanted that blog to bring to life of, hey, this is me. I'm a dad and this is my family. These are the exploits. This is, the trials and tribulations, the fun times that we go through. So when I decided to do the podcast, it resonated that, yeah, this is the same thing. I'm having real life conversations with my son, and I want people to be able to see that so that they can take from it what they can, and hopefully enhance their relationship with their children as well. So the whole thing about the fishbowl was, hey, it's see through, and our lives is out here.
I like that, man. And that's beautiful. Now I love it even more. Like I thought the title was catchy before, but now I know the story behind it. I'm like, yo, that's dope. Um, so when it comes to being transparent, how transparent are you, with your kids about just like how you feeling and your thoughts, your emotions, and things like that? Um, And do you feel like that? Do you feel like you use that to connect with them as well? Just transparency in your own life?
Yep. Yeah. And that was part of the growth process because, I've historically been a closed off individual when it comes to emotions. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? I just keep it on side and just deal with it, move on. But what I found was sharing that with them deepens that bond so much more because I can't expect them to be open, honest, and vulnerable if I'm not modeling it for them. You know what I'm saying? Like the other day, I was sitting there, me and my son, we was on the game, we was just chilling and we talking and playing. And I just paused it and I looked at him, I said, dude, you realize that these are like literally the happiest moments of my life. Just spending time with you and your sister and just being in, and I teared up and what I'm
Yeah.
saying. And then he came, gave me a hug and was like, man, that means a lot, to hear that. And you know what I'm saying? I could count on, like, I ain't even got to use one hand. I can use a finger of how many times I see my dad drop a tear, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And to be able to show him that side of, hey, it's okay to share how you're feeling, to express that to the people that you love. I think that that's going to set them up for much, much greater success than I've ever had. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. That's real, man. Cause like I come from the same type of background where I didn't see emotion, you know, on my
Mm-hmm.
parents, unless it was like they was going through something serious and it was like a breakdown.
Yeah. Yeah.
It wasn't where they was like being intentional about being vulnerable. It
Right.
wasn't the same
Right.
thing. And I remember going to, I had a situation, a few weeks ago with my son. And my son sometimes he can be a little mischievous, man. Like he'll sometimes he'll stretch the truth, you know.
Okay. Okay.
Sometimes he'll flat out lie, you know what I mean? Like he'll just, but he a kid, like, and I found out about him when I'm learning about him is that he gets embarrassed when he get caught up in something, and
Mm,
he don't want you to look
mm,
at him. He don't want you to look at him in a certain light.
right.
So he'll
Right.
rather just not, to lie about it, and so you don't look at him a certain way. And it
Yeah.
was it was something about his spelling words, man. He said his teacher didn't bring him home, right? And he said, well, I never got him from the teacher, never gave him to me. So his mom, I hit his mom up, and she's been communicating with the teacher, so I let her communicate. I said, ask the teacher about the spelling words, man.
Okay.
She's like, oh, she said she gave him 2 copies. Right? And I'm like, I ain't call him out. I ain't flat out call him a liar. I was like, well, teacher said you got 2 copies. What's going on? He's like, well, sometimes she forget. He's gonna ride this lie out. Right? He's like, she forgets. So she that's why I don't like her as a teacher. He was going in on her.
Oh man.
That's why I don't like her as a teacher because she do things, she say stuff, and she forget. I'm like, all right, okay, man. If you say she forget, we'll go talk to your teacher tomorrow. I'll go talk to her and we'll see.
Yeah.
And I can see him like he over there thinking hard now. So
Back against the wall. Which way I'm gonna play it?
back against the wall. And it was like me and him ended up going to the park that same night. We went on a bike ride,
Okay.
and we went to the park, and I used that as an opportunity to talk to him because I wanted to talk to him about some leadership stuff with football too. My son,
Mm,
he balls out. He's a ball player. So
okay.
he plays running back for his team, and he's a leader on the team. And I was talking to him about leadership, where I thought he could do better with his leadership.
Gotcha.
He's a great player, but some of his
Uh-huh.
leadership qualities was like, okay, needed some tuning up.
Okay.
And I was like, yo, I need you to do your best, man. I need you to be honest with me.
Yeah.
And he was like, he took a deep breath and he's like, you don't got to go to school tomorrow. He's like, I lied about those spelling words. And, I just went and I gave him a hug and he started crying.
Mm-hmm.
And, I just told him, I thanked him for telling me the truth. And, I got emotional and I was like, yo, man, like, look,
Right.
man.
Right.
And I told him, I was like, yo, man, you the best thing that ever happened to me, bro. Like, and I got emotional. And he
Uh-huh.
just like, when I told him he was the best thing that ever happened to me, he just laid his head in my midsection and just started bawling, crying. Like, it's like it's almost like he thought I might have been ashamed of him or something before, or like something because he lied to me or something.
Right.
And, it's like, nah, man, like,
Right. Right.
I'm here to guide you and teach you. Like, I ain't mad at you.
Yeah.
I just want you to be the best
And
little human being you can
that
be.
exactly. And it's hard for children to conceptualize that, you know what I'm saying? Because they continually striving to make us proud and make us happy. So any little perceived setback on their end is like, oh man, that's, you know what I'm saying, that's gonna be a knock on my belt, you know. So I think the way that you handled that is phenomenal because one, it shows him that he can come and talk to you without getting the reaction or reception that he would anticipate. And that's going to be phenomenal as he grows and starts to face harder and more difficult trials and tribulations, that he'll have you in his corner and feel comfortable to open up and get that advice from dad. And instead of running to the friends on the street that don't know no better anyway.
Yeah.
And they all trying to figure it out, telling each other what they done learned from big brothers who don't know nothing. So, I think that's golden, man.
Man, I appreciate that. Like, and I'm growing. Like, the me a couple years ago probably wouldn't have handled it that way.
Right.
Like
Right.
it's the constant evolution of me as a father and trying to grow, and just trying to be, trying to make the right decisions for my
Yeah.
kids, man, and to where my shit. Like I always say, like one of my jobs as a parent is not to let my shit spill over onto them. Right?
Right.
Like I
Right.
can't let my trauma and whatever, things that me not being educated or, seeking out new ways of doing things spill over onto them.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep. Absolutely.
So you got Daddy's Fishbowl you're doing with Trey. Like what ways do you intentionally connect with your daughter?
Yeah. And that's something that I find it more difficult. I'm gonna be honest, just because the things that Trey enjoys doing are all the things that I enjoy doing. You know what I'm saying? So it's easy for us to just hop on a game. It's easier for us to just build a Lego set. Kay is a little different, so the things that she enjoys doing, I absolutely hate doing. Like, and I talked about earlier finding creative ways so that it doesn't become tedious, because when it becomes a job, you're not going to put your best foot forward. You know what I'm saying? So what we do is we balance things out, so we'll play her little imaginary games, and she has she has this imaginary friend named Kendall, and I'm the voice for Kendall, and Kendall is like the bad version of Kayla. So anything Kayla wants to do that she knows is wrong, Kendall does it.
That's good.
And we'll be outside and she wants to play this outside, and there's people walking their dogs, and they hear me, no, Kayla, you can't do that. And they looking at me like, and I'm just sitting there like, hey, I'm connecting with my daughter. Look at me how you want to. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, just mixing things up of exposing her to different things, because she gets set in her ways. She'll find something that she like, and we will do it day in, day out for weeks upon weeks. And I'm like, hey, why don't we try this? No, I want to play Kindle. Like, well, let's try this, and then we'll try it, and she's good to go. But the thing that I found the most of really connecting with her is just speaking positive affirmations into her. Like, and I didn't realize how important that was until I did it a couple times, just out the blue. I don't know what sparked it or what it was, but it was literally where I spent just a couple minutes telling her how great she is, how much I love her, how much she means to me, how much of an impact she's going to have on this world because of she's a kind soul, because, she thinks about people first, and, telling her those type of things. And one time she got like teary eyed and was like, Daddy, you just gave me all type of butterflies in my stomach. And she runned over and gave me like the biggest hug. And I'm a firm believer of, when I hug my children, I do not let go until they do. You know what I'm saying? Because you never know how much of a hug they need. And I never want to cut them short. during that hug, I don't know what was going on, but my arm started falling asleep. I'm like, how long are we gonna be here? But it meant that much to her, to hear those things, and she appreciated it and wanted to show that appreciation. And since then, I make an effort to do that routinely so that it's not like a shock or a surprise to hear how great you are. You know what I'm saying? And then that'll translate into becoming her everyday belief.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that, man. I'm endorsing that right now. Like, as I think, as far as fathers go, like I'm taking that with me too. I know I really do hug my kids a
Yeah.
lot but like, the idea and being intentional about not letting go until they ready to let go, I think is
Yeah.
dope. I love the concept of that. And man, I think every father should take that with them, take that little nugget with them for
Yeah,
sure.
man. It's a game changer. And you'll notice, sometimes they like, all right, get off me. And then sometimes that hug it's a little longer, it's a little tighter. And then that usually is a signal to me of, hey, let's spend some time talking later. You know what I'm saying? I want to make sure I dig in and make sure. And sometimes it's nothing, but
Yeah.
sometimes it's, man, I had a bad day at school, XYZ happened. And I wouldn't have known that otherwise because maybe they didn't want to get into it. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But that extra hug was like the little nudge of, hey, everything all right with you? You know what I'm saying? How was you, what's going on? I know something might have been going on, and then they'll open up a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Are they pretty good? Are they pretty good students? I
Yeah,
don't know.
yeah. They are they're phenomenal, man. Like I have no problems out of them. Grades are good. They give it their all in terms of effort. You know, Kay is like a social butterfly. She want everybody to be her best friend in the class.
Yeah.
She's like, I want friends that will never leave my side. It's like, well, you have to go home after school. They're gonna leave your side at some point. And yeah, so that's a blessing because I tell them all the time that you guys honestly make parenting easy for me because I don't have to spend my time really disciplining y'all. You know what I'm saying? I don't have to spend my time getting mad. You know what I'm saying? And course correcting because you guys make an effort to do what you know needs to be done. And I
Yeah.
think that's a strong reflection of both me and their mother during those early years of pouring into them the values of being a good person.
Yeah. Yeah. So what's it like for you, right? Like, how do you feel about like maybe some dads that may have experienced divorce or been in a long-term relationship and with the kid's mom and split? What's your view now on dating? And when it comes to okay, if I'm gonna have at some point, I want to maybe be in a long-term relationship again, or maybe not.
Mhm.
Or what's your
Yep.
what's
Yep.
your what's your views on that right now for your own life?
Yeah. So, for me, that's definitely the goal. You know what I'm saying? I'll never let a situation or a circumstance ruin my potential blessings that may come. You know what I'm saying? So that door isn't closed off for me. There's a big wall of separation between my dating life and my children because I never want a revolving door of women coming around my kids. Like if I'm bringing somebody around, it's because they're gonna be around. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? And I've yet to do that because I haven't gotten to that point with anybody that I feel like, yeah, if I introduce you, it's gonna be a hard out to get you to leave.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But with Trey, not so much with Kayla, but with Trey, I do talk about my dating experience because he's at that age where he's
Yeah.
asking questions. He's 13 and he's trying to date. He went on his first date a couple weeks ago and we potted about it and it was
Okay.
hilarious. We did a before and after, and the after was nothing like he expected it to be before.
Yeah.
So he'll ask me like, "Oh yeah, what'd you do this weekend? Did you go out with a girl?" Like, it's like, yeah. It's like, yeah, what y'all do? And you know what I'm saying? I'll give him some details of, yeah, you know, we went here to dinner, we had a good conversation, things like that, just because he ain't got nowhere else to get it from. So I want
Yeah.
him to be prepared on how you treat a woman when you take them out, like what dating is like as a real man,
Mm.
not one of these little boys that's just running around here because at the end of the day, that's gonna separate you from the pack. And I want you to be prepared to win.
Yeah. So when you talk about, we've been talking a lot about connecting with our kids and preparing them, like, like you said preparing them to win, right? Um, for you, like, what's one of the most essential parts of that preparation? Like, how do you prepare your kids to win in life?
Yeah. I think for me, it's really all about the communication and building that bond so that, and there's a couple aspects to that. One I alluded to earlier, the fact that it is very, very important for me to, so that they know that they can come to me and talk to me about anything. I don't ever want them feel like they got to hide something or they got to run to somebody. I'm the source. You going through it, I done probably been. So I got apps that can help you. Um, the other aspect of that is when that communication is strong, that bond increases so much more. And I feel like if we have a very good bond, then they're they're more likely to take heed to what I say and
Mm.
to really hold that close so that they can put it into practice and it just isn't in one ear and not the other. Is no, I know dad really cares about me. I know that he has my best interest at heart. So if it's reason and because we have that connection, I might list 70% of it, 80%. You ain't gonna never get 100. You know what I'm
Mm.
saying? It's just they're kids. But the stronger that bond is, I think the higher that percentage goes. And providing them the information that I'm privy to that they just don't know because they're children, I
Yeah.
think really sets them up for success as long as they take it in and utilize it.
Yeah. So, so I kind of want to go back to the parallel parenting and kind of piggyback off a point you just made about, talk about how communication is the biggest thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, do you feel like when it comes to, like you said, they smart kids. So
Yep.
you said Kay don't really have a super solid understanding of what's going on, but your boy do,
Yep.
and
Yep.
do you think he has told himself or has any beliefs about what's happening and like, what's the story that he's telling himself about why you and mom don't communicate?
Yep. So he knows the story.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
he actually put the pieces together and figured that out. And we had a real discussion about that. And I asked him, like, how do you feel about that? And he shared his views on it. And then, he expressed that, it's his hope that day that, that'll get put past us and we'll work together again. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He he understands why that's not happening right now. But he has expressed his desire that obviously, I mean, every kid want their parents to be civil and be cordial, and there's no reason that we both walk in the room and can't say hi to each other. Like,
Yeah.
that makes absolutely no sense at all. And that's something like even Kayla can pick up on that. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? So yes, he knows the story because he's put it together in his mind. And again, he felt comfortable enough coming to me and saying, hey, I think I know why you and mommy aren't really speaking right now.
Mm.
And we had a discussion about that. And I'm always careful to shield them from like my actual views in lieu
Mm.
of saving the picture or the conception of their mom that they have. I never want to, throw dirt on that, and that backfires. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I was very careful during that conversation to steer it towards more of my involvement and my thoughts, and you know what I'm saying, to leave that part out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think he's having, or has he talked about like any animosity that he may have in the situation, or you think he's just like, oh, I love mommy, I love daddy, and I just want them to
Yeah, I think it's that, you know, and he's a very um emotionally understanding individual.
mm,
So I think that given the circumstances, he understands or can sympathize with where the situation lies.
mm,
Now, that's not to say that he doesn't want it to change,
yeah,
but because he can empathize with where it is, I think that prevents him from having animosity. And
mm,
again, this is all me speculating based off of our discussions, the interactions that I've seen,
yeah,
and I haven't noticed any change in behavior. That's the biggest thing that I look for. You know what I'm saying? Because that's a telltale sign.
mm,
And there hasn't, because you can't really hide that. You
mm,
know, and I haven't seen any of that from him or Kayla. So that kind of lets me know I'm on the right track with my level of thinking.
yeah. So in a parallel parenting situation, right? Like when you think about, all right, if I want to get to this next step, and if I want to get to, we kind of touched on it a little bit earlier. Like, what would you tell somebody? What would you tell somebody in your shoes, like that want to get back to a good place, that want to get to a place of co-parenting and communicating effectively with their kid's mom or dad or whatever, the other parent in the situation? Like,
Uh-huh.
what would you tell somebody in your shoes? Like, this is what you need to do, or this is what
Yeah.
you need to think about. This is what you need to put
Yep.
aside.
Right. So as I'm telling somebody that could be in my shoes, I'm telling myself the same thing now, because I'm still taking my own advice. You know what I'm saying? And part of it is you have to put in the work on yourself to
Mm,
get through whatever situation there was. Right. So until you've gotten to a point where you've accepted whatever the situation was, you've grieved through it, and have gotten past that anger or that place and blame,
mm,
it's not going to be a successful situation going forward. You know what
yeah.
I'm saying? Because you always going to come into it with a chip on your shoulder,
Mm-hmm.
and especially if the other person feel the same way, y'all gonna butt heads, and any progress that gets made is going to be short lived. So once you've actually put in that work and did the necessary, self-reflection, whatever healing needs to happen,
Yeah.
then you can extend that olive branch and try and create that bridge that helps the other person get to the same place where you are.
Mm. Are you would you mind talking about that process for you? Like a little bit of, about that, your process of personal growth and development or healing, or the work that you've done with
Yeah.
yourself, because I think a lot of men, they struggle with that. They struggle, because, we're more prone to keep things inside and not talk. And, obviously more men are committing suicide than um, so because of that, all that stuff, one of the reasons is because they're harboring all that stuff and that pain, and they don't share it. Like, what
Yeah.
was your healing and journey look? How did that look?
Yeah. And like I said earlier, I'm still on that journey,
Yeah.
because you know, for a long time, sharing and expressing emotions wasn't something that I did. It just, I didn't know how to do it. And honestly, therapy was huge. Like I am such an advocate for therapy.
Mm,
And I was the strongest, like Like, nah, I'm not about to go sit and talk to nobody, like put my business out there. I just figure it out. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? And then
absolutely.
one of the one of the first things that was like a major breakthrough for me in therapy was we was talking about emotions. And she was like, what emotions do you feel, over the course of a day, a week, a month? And I was like, the only emotions I know is happy, sad, and mad.
Mhm.
That's it. And she was like, no, 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 no. There's there's many, many more.
Mhm.
And I really could not articulate those other emotions. So
Mhm.
sitting and reflecting and understanding how to look within myself
Mhm.
and analyze what I'm feeling and what I'm
Yeah,
going through was a huge factor that accelerated my personal growth and development.
yeah,
Another thing that, you know, when we first went through the divorce, I took a good year and a half and just focused on me.
yeah,
I didn't run back out and try and get on the scene. It was no, I'm gonna determine and decide and understand who is Keith, who am I? Because for
yeah,
so long I was a father, I was a
yeah,
husband, I was a manager. You know what I'm saying? I was all these titles, but I didn't know who Keith actually was as an
yeah,
individual. And I had to understand that before I could move forward in any situation.
yeah,
So it was a lot of self-reflection. It was a lot of I didn't even know what my hobbies was, bro.
yeah,
You know what I'm saying? Like it was, oh, I like to bowl. It was like, well, I like that because I did bowling with my dad all the time.
yeah,
And is that really something I like, or is it just residual of something I
yeah,
used to do all the time?
yeah,
So all of those things was paramount to me getting to this space that I'm in now of feeling comfortable and confident as who I am as an individual and knowing that I show up as my true and authentic self.
man. I love that, man. And I love that you said when you talked about emotions and,
Yeah.
being able to learn how to articulate what you was feeling. Cause I think a lot of people don't know how to do that, man. And to be able
Uh-huh.
to say like, oh, to really be able to analyze those thoughts and emotions. And I remember, my pops, he wasn't really around. I did the first podcast episode with him. And
Okay. Yeah.
I remember talking to him back in the day and asking him, why, why didn't you come around? And, you know,
Mm,
him feeling like he was ashamed, you know what I'm saying? Like to be able to say
mm,
yo,
mm.
I'm to be able to say like, man, I'm not providing for my kids the way that I want to. And I'm ashamed. And like to deal and work through those
Yeah.
emotions. And I don't feel like I'm connecting with my kids the way I want to. And yeah, I think shame is a big thing that, and just being, like you said, being able to
Yeah.
articulate.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
that's good
And
stuff, man.
another part, that really just when you say that shame word that was like, instrumental was really opening up and leaning on my support system. You
Mm,
know what I'm saying? And I a lot longer to do that than it should have
mm,
because of the shame. You know what I'm saying? I felt shame of, hey, I'm out here like the world's greatest husband and I'm going through a divorce. Like, how is this
mm,
possible? Like, there was so much shame that I didn't want to share that with nobody.
yeah,
And when I finally did, there was so much comfort in having people surround me and support me that it was like, man, I should have did this months. So that, living with that shame and understanding how to get over that and not let it consume you, that's a critical piece.
man. I think that's solid, man. Like, and just all the nuggets you've been sharing. Um, I could. I feel like, man, we gonna talk some more. I feel like we could talk definitely for hours about these things, but like, I try to keep
Yeah.
I don't want to keep, I want the listeners to be like hearing us talk for hours and hours and hours. I want to be, so if you're listening, I do try to be mindful of y'all time. I don't want to keep it, but like, we can have these great conversations and we're going to keep doing them, man. Like, man, so the last question I'll ask you, man, just like one of those cliche questions, man. Like, what do you like? What's the big fatherhood tip, man, that comes from Keith Robertson Jr., man, who's, like you said, you're a manager, you've been a husband, like, podcaster, all these things. What's the big parenting fatherhood tip, man, that you want to leave us with?
Yeah, man. And I usually go with the first thing that pops in my head because it's usually the most true and authentic. And for me, it's all around that connection. However you get it, what I'm saying, whatever that means to you, building that strong bonding connection with your children, that's going to last. What I'm saying? It's way more than anything else that you could bring, because it stands the test of time if you build the foundation and you build it up right. What I'm saying? Like, that is what I focus my energy on. And by focusing on that, all the other aspects fall into place, because spending time with them, connection, having conversations with them, is building that connection. Teaching them things is building that connection. And at the end of the day, they're going to look back on that connection and they're going to value the relationship that they have with their father.
Love that, man. Connection. I was reading a book recently, it's talking about connection over correction. Like we connect with your kids. We do a lot of correcting, but make sure you connect. And if you're listening, you parallel parenting, like my man Keith was talking about, work on yourself. Work on yourself. Stop placing blame and pointing the finger and doing all these things. Like, figure out what's going on with you. Look in the mirror.
Yeah,
see
absolutely.
If you're doing, make sure you're doing everything you possibly can to make the situation the best it can be. Look there, start with you. And if you got your kids 50% of the time, make sure you're connecting with them. Put down the sticks. Get off Netflix. Utilize that time that you got, and don't make it a task. Find ways to connect with your kids that you can both enjoy. And man, check out Daddy's Fishbowl if you want some transparency, man. Check it out.
I appreciate that. Appreciate that, man. This was great. Like, this fed my soul. You know what I'm saying? I thought I was coming here to bless your podcast, and I'm walking away with jewels. You know what I mean? So, hey, I love it, man, and I appreciate you for real.
Man, you definitely blessed the podcast, man. I'm so grateful for you, brother. We definitely got to stay more connected, and we will, for sure.
Yeah,
I'll be intentional about that. And
absolutely.
Thank you for being on, brother. Thank you for being on.
No doubt. I appreciate you, man.
All right, stay on real quick. And
all right.
Hey, This was episode 8, The Modes That Make Fatherhood. I love you if you're listening. I'll see you soon.